What's up, Lakers fans? Welcome to the Lakers Theory Podcast. I am Shane Jackson. Joined with me is Austin Case. And the Lakers played a good team tonight. And surprise, surprise, they lost. 127 to 119 in the Grizzlies' favor here on Sunday, January 9th. And the Lakers followed a 21-20 on the year, ending their win streak that got as high as 4 games. Is that correct? 4 games, right?
5.
One, two, I think I'm seeing 4. Blazers, T-Wolves, Kings, and Hawks. So 4-game win streak. Okay. It was our longest of the season either way. It doesn't matter. But those were bad teams. And the Lakers played a good team tonight, and they lost. And, it was honestly a predictable fashion. I'll get your initial thoughts. I have plenty. The Lakers made a kind of valiant effort towards the end, but that part meant so little to me. Austin, just what are your initial thoughts from this loss?
The Lakers, they're not good. I thought, dude, I swore they turned a corner, and I guess they did. They figured out how to beat bad teams, but they themselves are a bad team when they play mediocre teams. So, they might be a 500 team for the rest of the year, and that's going to be very frustrating. I don't know how much different this would have looked with AD on the floor. So we have that aspect of it to say, what if? But, dude, they got their ass kicked tonight. And, for the comeback, for whatever it's worth, whatever for that. I mean, it was great. I don't want people to think that I didn't like that, because I was out of my seat. Like, I thought they had a chance. Dude, there was like a minute and a half left, and I'm like, let's get LeBron back in this game. Like, there was a clear effort being made, and I think they could have capitalized on it. But, they chose to stick with the guys that, had a 21-0 run, and that's cool. But, dude, they got their butt kicked, and I don't know. You mentioned that the Grizzlies are just a tough matchup for them, and I see that because they just they got their butt kicked on the inside, and honestly, the Grizzlies, like, they just made shots. I feel like they hardly missed, and so that was tough in general. But I mean, LeBron had 35 points, and the next closest was 16. Like, had they not gone on that big run late in the game, THT would have been the only other person in double figures. So you're going to lose games if that's the case. So I don't know how much we can look into this loss, but I thought they were turning a corner, and I am since not so sure. So that's what, 2-3 days difference.
Yeah.
We'll see.
So I still believe the Lakers are taking steps. They're making strides. I do think that they don't deserve the benefit of the doubt until they beat a good team. Like, Lakers fans shouldn't be optimistic until you see results in a way that matters, especially when you think, hey, most Lakers fans expect to be playing kind of deeper into the playoffs. That said, I think we have done, a podcast or two after a Grizzlies game, or at least, affiliated with the Grizzlies game. And I had mentioned in the past that, like, this just isn't a good matchup for the Lakers. The stat they always bring out when these two teams plays, first of all, is the fact that the Grizzlies are the youngest team in the NBA. The Lakers are the oldest team in the NBA. Like, that, for one, the Lakers do not need to be playing a team that is young, has a lot of energy on a random Sunday. Like, that just doesn't need to happen. But more than that, I think it goes deeper than that. It's just the fact that the Grizzlies play such a physical style of basketball that I honestly don't think the Lakers are that equipped to deal with on a night-to-night basis. Especially in this kind of like new version of Lakers where they're playing more small ball. Like, I think they're just going to get out-muscled inside. And I think you saw that a lot. I mean, I actually was kind of like somewhat pleasantly surprised by the Lakers' effort from the start, right? You saw, I think at one point, Carmelo dive for a loose ball. LeBron was, jawing with Desmond Bain at one point, there in the first half. Russell Westbrook took a charge after a really bad jumper. Like I liked that kind of intensity from the start because the Grizzlies were going to, play with that type of effort and energy for 48 minutes. I just don't think that continued. Once the Lakers started missing wide open shots in the first half and literally no one outside of LeBron could hit a shot, I think you kind of saw like that kind of deficit balloon a little bit more, and the Lakers really had no shot after that. But in general, it's not a matchup like if these two teams made the playoffs, I would not be excited about because the Grizzlies just punked the Lakers in a way that I'm not even sure Anthony Davis fixed a whole lot because honestly, AD has notably come up short in some of these kind of like bigger physical matchups, especially, in the last season and a half. But I don't know. It's a matchup that I believe this is the last time the Lakers had to play the Grizzlies all season. Which thankfully, because like literally every time I've seen the Lakers play the Grizzlies, it feels like they get punked in a way that may not always be reflected in the scoreboard. So, yeah, honestly, I don't know how much more there is to say about this game other than that. Like that's like again, I think the Lakers do need to beat good teams for us to have belief in them. I don't know how realistic that is without AD at times, but even with AD, I am not sure that the Lakers I would take too often in a matchup like this with the Grizzlies. Like if they played this, matchup 10 times during the regular season, I'm not sure how often I would pick the Lakers. And Lakers were, like 4.5 point favorites in this game on the Vegas line, which was really surprising to me. So yeah, I don't know. In general, I didn't have high expectations going into this game. I had even lower after the result of this game. And yeah, really outside of everybody, what LeBron is to blame. What is there to fix? What do you do if you're the Lakers?
I don't know, man. I thought Dwight got minutes really late, and it was really obvious that they were getting kind of bullied on the inside, and so I thought that was something that Dwight could have helped tremendously. Kind of looking at his line, he was a -4, but when he first got in the game, he made an immediate impact. I think he got he got at least one offensive board. I don't think the Lakers were able to capitalize on that, which speaks to them missing a lot of shots. But, and I don't know. They missed a ton of shots, and I think that's really what killed them. Through the first quarter, it was tight, and it looked good. And then, they stopped scoring. Like, nobody could score. LeBron was able to do his thing, but, if no one else is going to participate offensively, then it's going to be a tough night. And honestly, man, the Grizzlies just were on fire and they couldn't miss. And, if the Lakers aren't hitting shots, they're not going to win a game like that.
Yeah, honestly, basketball isn't always as simple as like who hits shots or not. But that could explain a lot. I don't know if this score, I don't know if the Lakers really ever had a shot, necessarily, but I don't know if the score is as lopsided as it was if the Lakers are hitting just a couple more of those shots. You think of how many corner threes the Lakers missed that were wide open compared to the Grizzlies who hit literally all of them. And so, yeah, especially when you compare that against the Hawks, right? Like everyone's going to look and say, 127 points by the Grizzlies. Like the Lakers cannot compete with that kind of defensive effort. And that's true. But an 80-less Lakers team is not going to be that good on the defensive end. And so really you're just hoping to outscore them. And I think you saw that against the Hawks, right? Like the Lakers were ass defensively against the Hawks, but they outscored them like crazy. And literally everyone got there. So I think that is the game plan. AD was taking a couple of shots before the game and that knee brace right before the game. So hopefully he's back sooner than later because they desperately need him on the defensive end. Stanley Johnson only getting 13 minutes tonight. That was questionable because I think, as we alluded to on the last podcast, he kind of brings maybe that length that AD had for so long that the Lakers just don't have without him. So I don't know. I'm trying not to be too defeated on this podcast because I feel like a majority of our shows have been kind of sad boy-ish, but it's tough when literally every time the Lakers feel like they have to play a meaningful game or a meaningful team, and they fall short. And I don't know. Did you see anything from the comeback bid that is worth mentioning before we kind of close out the show?
Yeah, Wayne Ellington deserved more minutes tonight than what he got. 16 points in 11 minutes, 4 or 5 from deep. They could have used him a lot earlier than what he got into the game. I just, kind of little too late situations there. I felt Dwight needed more minutes kind of early on there. But honestly, they still have stuff to figure out, and honestly, that's kind of how it is.
That kind of is similar to the comment here by Miles Tyson on Facebook. He said Frank Vogel doesn't know how to use his roster, and I think there's some truth to that. I think we mentioned on the show that the Lakers Frank Vogel started this year, trying to piece the Lakers into what he thought his puzzle of success would be, and that's just. Not the version the Lakers is going to have success with. That's not the way this team is going to win. And I thought you saw maybe him coaching and managing his team a little bit differently. But maybe Miles Tyson is right. That the questionable minutes there by some of those guys is worth noting. But the Lakers did split the weekend, which was our prediction entering the weekend.
That is
right. 1-1. I think we both picked them to lose to the Hawks, though, and beat the Grizzlies. So we are stupid in the end. But the Lakers will probably get back to their winning ways because they play the Kings on Wednesday, and the Kings are a bad team, and therefore they beat bad teams. But the Denver Nuggets are on Saturday, and that feels like another chance for maybe the Lakers to kind of rise to the challenge and pass a test. And we'll see if they do that. I believe that will probably be our next show. I can't imagine we see anything on Wednesday that makes us want to go live on a Wednesday night after the Kings game, but maybe we will. But at the very least, we will be back on Saturday to hopefully recap the Lakers' victory. If not, it could be even more depressing of a show next time, which is hard to imagine. He's Austin Case. I'm Shane Jackson. Thank you so much for listening to another Lakers Theory podcast, and we'll see you next time.